I want to get started on time so that we give our speaker as much time as she deserves and needs. We don't want to miss a single minute of what she has to say. I'm Deb Davis. I'm the facilitator for the Space Coast International Association for Near-Death Studies. So we say Space Coast SCIANDS. Those of you that have been here before, and many of you have, remember to go to ians.org for more information about all things near death and spiritual transformations. So be sure and go to ians.org. But we're glad you're here. We are so fortunate to have a growing number of attendees every month. I never know how many are coming, but I know the ones that are here are the ones that are going to be blessed with a message. And almost always, and in this case, it's going to be a message of hope, and you'll understand how life has its ups and downs, but with your faith and persistence and courage, you can move through that downward part of your life. I wanted to start out by saying that we give little awards for being here, and it's just kind of a little blessing to you because you've made the taken the time to come. And I'm going to let Angie pull the lucky number. You got just a little gift.
Okay. 800629.
629. Katrina.
Katrina is my daughter.
Thank you. Katrina helps her mom get all set up. Like, I have to have Mike help me a lot of times. I'm getting better and better, but we sometimes need help, don't we? I wanted to tell you about the upcoming speakers that I'm really excited that we're having. I have a schedule, and you can pick one up if you'd like. I have it up through July. We have speakers, and we're so fortunate to have Sandra, who is local from Sebastian, and then we have Serena Batista that will be here in March. And she's local. She lives in Melbourne. She's kind of going to be my neighbor soon, so that's exciting. Just real quick, to get yourself ready for when you are going to be listening to Serena, this book is one of, I've read this one, My View from Heaven. That's a great book that you can get on Amazon. And I believe she said she was gifting each one of you one of these books, which we have a little bit of a surprise for you next time, a little bit of a interesting little thing that I came up with, and JT has approved it. This is A Bridge to Healing, and then she has, it's a workbook and the other book that goes with this workbook. So if you can get those and start reading them, it will be a true eye-opener, and it's a game changer in your way of thinking about your life from the time you read it for the rest of your life. It's that life-changing. So I hope you will try to get that. Serena is going to be here March 24th. David Schutz, who is from Texas, he wrote God Took My Clothes, and I've got that book over there if anyone wants to take that home. He's going to be here in April. He'll either be Zooming in or he'll be here. I hope he can come here. And then Tom Leach, he's one of our board members. He spoke in May. 3 years ago was our anniversary for starting this meeting, this local meeting. It was the brainchild of my really good friend, Lynn Grace. This is something I carry with me as a reminder. I found it a few days after her death, her transition, and she transitioned in February, and we were going to start this in March. And I kind of dilly-dacked around and wasn't sure if I should do it by myself, because I thought Lynn was she was the guru of all things near death. And she's the one that had gotten me interested in this whole spiritual transformative way of thinking. And when she left so soon, I was just going, should I really do this by myself? But she let me know by leaving this rock somewhere for me to pick up that she was around. She's still here. She's around. And so I was really excited to know that she gave me some after-death communication that got me going, and I got this started then in May. Instead of March, we got started in May. So I'm very happy to have her help, your help. Some of you, I was just saying to Martha and Mary, y'all wave. Martha and Mary have been with us from the very beginning of attendance. Martha said she came the month after May. We started in May. She started coming in June. But so many of you have been coming every single month. And some of you come as far as three hours away, 2.5 hours away. And that's Dr. Flora and Howard and his beautiful, lovely ladies. They drive over. So we're very thankful that you do that. And then we're getting more and more people coming onto Zoom, so we appreciate that. All right, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker. Hello, I have a very loud voice. I'm a former teacher of elementary students, so I can talk very loud. I don't want Sandra to have to talk very loud. But as I mentioned before, Sandra Rose is here. She lives in Sebastian, and she has been attending our meetings, and she's here now to share her life journey. And I don't want to spoil it for you. There are just so many ups and downs that she's had, and so many incredible, enthralling experiences that I just want to give her as much time as possible. So hopefully, listen carefully. There's some notepads over there if you want to take notes, and then maybe Sandra will have a few minutes to answer questions, okay? All right, Sandra, come on up. Well, hello and good afternoon. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you, Deb,
You're welcome.
for inviting me to share a glimpse of heaven with you all today. I hope that you will all find what I have to say, okay, comforting and assuring. I can speak loudly if I have to by myself, okay?
That's me. I can do that too. It may be a finicky chord.
Maybe it's just as easy. Can you hear me in the back row if I speak like this? Is that okay? Let's just put this away then. Is it going to be a problem?
Not at all.
Zoom? Let's just do that then. Okay. I don't mind. It's okay with me. Okay, are you ready? Yeah. All right, here we go. When you hear the words, a glimpse of heaven, what comes to mind as you've been looking at that picture? Has anyone here seen heaven? Some of you I know have. I know Serena has. Do you know someone who has? I've always wondered about heaven. Is it real? Does it really exist? What happens when we die? I wondered, who would I see in heaven? Have you wondered, our relatives there, our loved ones there before us? Will I see my mom and dad, my grandparents? I'd love to talk to my mother again. Dear younger brother Billy, who died when he was only 17, I'd love to see Bill again. My unborn little girl, Mary Beth, I'd like to see that she went to heaven as well. Let's step back a minute. Do you remember what you were doing in the summer of 1952? Long time ago. You young ones don't remember. You're only a twinkle in your dad's eyes, but okay.
I can vividly, and this is where my adventure started. Do you remember polio? Who's heard the word polio? Many of us have heard it. Polio, as you know, is a highly infectious virus that invades the nervous system, and it can cause total paralysis within a matter of hours. At the height of the polio epidemic in 1952, there were nearly 60,000 cases in the United States alone, and 3,000 deaths were reported. Celebrities like Alan Alda and Dinah Shore had polio. In that summer of 52, I was only 7 years old, so you can do your math. There was a polio epidemic in my hometown, Glens Falls, New York, up in the Adirondack Mountains, and there were 10 of us children. They were very, very sick that 1 week. Let me tell you about polio and how I survived it. I was rushed to Glens Falls Hospital. I remember being placed on a stretcher in the ER. The nurses pushing me quickly down the hall to the lights were click, 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 click. They were pushing me as fast as they could to try to get me to the elevator, to get me to the 3rd floor so they could operate on me because I was drowning in my own fluids. I was not breathing. My breathing muscles were paralyzed. I remember the stretcher stopping abruptly. I remember someone holding down my shoulders. I remember a doctor leaning over me. I remember screaming and then silence. The doctor had cut a hole in my throat, making an emergency airway called a tracheostomy, so I could get air. Because the incision was below my voice box, I couldn't speak, is to breathe. I remember how it felt to have that trach tube in my throat, not particularly comfortable, and not being able to talk or say anything. Plus, I was totally paralyzed. They said I would have been dead before I got to the 3rd floor had he not done that in the hallway and did an emergency in the hallway. No operating room, nothing, right there. That polio caused these muscles to become paralyzed, so there's no breathing. If they don't move, we don't breathe. Now, there's 2 types of polio. Do you know that? There are actually 2. Most of us think about the paralytic polio. That's when you see people that have had maybe the shriveled leg or the shriveled arm. That's called paralytic polio. That does affect other muscles. There's a second type called spinal bulbar polio. That's the type I had. I couldn't have a regular kind, right? That was the killer variety. You either live or you die. It affects the swallowing muscles. The polio virus infection affected the nerves in my brain, causing that paralysis. There was no cure for polio at that time. And once the disease started, there was no stopping. You just had to let it run its course. There was nothing they could do about it. I remember how I felt being placed in an iron lung. See that thing? It was like a submarine or a great big culvert. It's a huge cylinder machine with window ports on the side so they could reach to me because I couldn't do anything for myself. I was laying in there. The head protrudes out here on like a little shelf, and up here is a mirror. So the whole world is that mirror because you can't move. There you go, there's your mirror. There's the mirror and there's the head. And there's a membrane, and it pulls and pushes. It equalizes pressure and takes the pressure up, making a whooshing noise. Whoosh, whoosh. Maddening. Here you can hear it. It just brought back shivers. I also remember how it felt to be totally paralyzed, and that I could not move a muscle. So I was laying there in this big old thing, hard as a rock, but I didn't feel anything. I suffered a raging fever for days. My mother was so afraid I would have permanent brain damage from that. That was my mother. She was the valedictorian, heaven forbid anything happened to my brain. That's my mother, was how she thought, but that was mother's way of dealing with this. I was in the iron lung for several weeks. My doctor, a young Dr. Oral Friedman, I was his first polio patient. He and I stayed connected all these years. It was really a fun thing for us. He called me his special girl. When I was an adult, I asked my mother what it was like for her when I had polio. And if she remembered the iron lung. She told me how afraid she was My temperature was raging and she was afraid of the high fever damaging my brain, as I said. She told me she was worried because the other 9 Glenspal's children had died that week. They all died that week. She told me how proud she was of all the churches in our community. The Jewish, the Catholic, the Protestant were all praying for the paralyzed dual girl. Everybody in town was hoping that one of us would live, and I was the only one left. Mother said she had one consolation. With the spinal bulbar, I'd either live or die. So that's my mother's attitude. That's how she was. Mother told me about the day, excuse me, she had been called to the hospital that had gotten worse and was not expected to live the rest of the day. Can you imagine being called in? I can't. I can't imagine losing my children. She told me how she sat with the nurses and the doctors and she watched me die because this is what they see. All they saw was my face, my head. I died. So the doctor got up and turned off the machine. And Mother asked if she could just sit with me a while in the room quietly. As the light faded to twilight, Mother sat there watching the color of my face turn to ashen. It was a while she was with me. She just didn't know what to think, but she was just dealing with losing me. Then she heard a clunking sound coming from the iron lung. What is wrong with the machine? She gets up and she looks at the machine. I was picking the side of the iron lung. Mother ran for the nurses, who turned the iron lung back on, and Mother watched the color return to my face. I came back from the dead. My body was wrapped, not over it. I got through that part of it, the fever and the crises. My body was wrapped in large pieces of steamed wool, big diaper-sized sheets of steamed wool. And they held, like the old-fashioned diaper pins, they were held together with diaper pins. And remember, I am totally paralyzed laying in this thing. I'm wrapped in hot steamed wool and I can't move. I can't itch. All I can do is. It was agony. It was maddening. I remember that. Even today, you'll not see me wearing a turtleneck sweater of any kind. This is about as high as a shirt will get on me. When I walk into a dry cleaner, even today, when you walk in, you smell that hot wool, that process that you have. Oh, nope. And the other day in PT, I had not realized I hadn't seen parallel bars in a long time. And there are parallel bars that brought back all of that. Have you heard of the Sister Kinney method? I'm jumping to another subject, but it is related. The use of steamed wool in the treatment of polio is what is often called the Sister Kinney method. Today, later after my death. There is an amazing family connection to the Sister Kinney method I'd like to share with you. My ancestor, great-great-grandma, Cordelia Duell, she lived 1835 to 1913 in upstate New York. She was a spinner, a knitter, a weaver, a nurse, and a midwife. Late in 1888, there was an epidemic of spinal meningitis, very similar to polio for what it does to your body, in Hamilton County, New York. Most of the babies there died from it. But she had a little grandbaby, Grace Culver. She was only 6 months old at the time. Grandma Cordelia went to the baby, brought her through the disease by laying her on moist, hot cloths, thereby stopping her convulsions. Years afterward, this is a method created by my ancestor that was used by Sister Kinney in fighting polio, a related disease. Is it appropriate then that I would be the sole survivor of that epidemic? And my quality of life is because of this particular treatment method. You never think of it, but it goes always. Yeah. After many weeks, the crisis had passed. But that doesn't mean it's over. I was able to leave the horrible iron lung and breathe on my own. That isn't me. Isn't she cute? I don't have one of me. But I was about that size, a little bit taller, but my recovery started learning to walk. Remember, my brain was almost destroyed. I had to learn to walk and talk, everything, until I was an infant all over again. They had to repattern everything about me. After many weeks of physical and speech therapy, I got better. I remember I love whirlpool baths, I still do. And the stretching, the nurse would say, Sandra, move your finger. She's moving my finger. Sandra, move your hand. Think that you're moving your hand. It's training the nerves in the brain to work all over. It's amazing they could do this with me. I'm not a robot, I am real. After weeks of therapy and sheer determination, I was walking on my own. I began speaking again. Once I found my new voice, I wouldn't stop talking. Uncle Charlie named me Chatterbox. Very appropriate. Once I wind up, you can't stop me. You have to time me down just about right now. I was finally released from the hospital. I eventually joined my third grade class. You'd only imagine the astronomical medical bills my parents faced at the end of this event. The March of Dimes paid for every single bill. Later that year, the polio vaccine came out. Now, I probably have a natural immunity, and Katrina, my daughter, and her twin brother, they probably have a natural immunity, but we still wanted them to be protected. So do you know someone who had polio or someone who died from it? After today, you can say yes, because you do know, you know me. I am the sole survivor of that epidemic. So imagine that. I'm a walking, talking miracle. How about that, huh? Life after polio. Well, you can only imagine. I hope you can. I suffered from survivor's guilt. Why did I live? I'm just Sandy Jewell. I'm a nobody. I'm just a little kid from the country. Why did those other 9 kids die? Why did I live? Why me? Why? And I felt guilty. Now for the rest of the story, the best part. The part I remember so vividly. The part that clarifies why I'm here. Are you ready? I was allowed the privilege of visiting heaven. I'd like to tell you what it was like. I have died not once, but twice. In 1952 with polio, and again in 1977. Let me tell you about the second time. That's the time I remember seeing heaven. If I saw it as a child, I don't remember it. I don't know. I remember this time vividly as though it happened yesterday. The beauty, the peace of this place, the grandeur of this place, the sound of this place is beyond any words our simple language can convey. I hope I'm going to give you some idea how beautiful it was and how peaceful it was. So sit back and relax, and I'll share it with you. There came a time I was having female problems, sorry guys, but it happens, bleeding, a miscarriage, and precancerous test results. A uterine tumor, that's my brother and I. That's right after I had polio, I was wearing a scarf. A uterine tumor the size of a walnut decided to go to the size of a cantaloupe in 1 month. That was not a good thing. So I was only 32 years of age. My doctor said, we have to do hysterectomy. Okay, I have my 3 children. I'm happy. Fine. I wasn't afraid of the surgery. I woke up, I felt so good. Oh, my troubles were over. I felt so good. So I remember being walked down the hall and out of bed and feeling good. You're kind of waddling along, right? And I'm kind of going like this because I was cut from here to there, right? And I'm waddling along. And the nurse pulled me by the shoulders and said, Sandra, stand up straight. Oh, I remember the burning and the pain of her pulling me back. My entire abdomen hurt. I remember feeling relief when I got back to my room. I fell into my bed, I think, more than climbed into my bed, and I fell into a blissful sleep. Some hours later, I awoke and noticed it was dark in the room. Just a green glow. You know, televisions used to green glow, and a green flicker at night. Well, my roommate had the lights off and was watching television. Like, where am I? Am I dead? What is this? You know? I felt wet. Oh dear. I felt so, oh gosh, I wet the bed. So I reached my call button over there. This arm was on the rigid ivy boards, you know, I've been in there. Buttons over there, I can't move, and I left the bed. No. So I said to my roommate, please turn on the call button and call a nurse. I think I wet myself. As she turned on the overhead light, I remember her screams and my screams. The color was red, red everywhere. My blankets were soaked, red with my blood, with almost blood out. From that point on, I remember everything in slow motion. The nurses ran to my bedside. I was rushed somewhere and immersed in ice water. Doctors were all around me. I didn't feel cold. I didn't feel anything. I hadn't heard up. I was up here watching the whole thing down there. And what they were saying and what they were doing. I felt weightless and just kind of floating up there. And all of a sudden, a portal opened in the ceiling of my room, the room I was in. I could see sky. But whoo! I felt myself being lifted up and propelled forward through the portal through no effort of my own. Yes, I was afraid, but also thrilled and exhilarated. This is kind of fun. Like, wow, whoa, this is great. What is this? So incredible. My body was moving up through the clouds and the stars. So how do I describe this? Words are inadequate to explain this, but I'll try. The closest description I can think of is Star Wars, excuse me, not Star Wars, Star Trek. That TV show Star Trek, they would take the Enterprise and they would do warp speed through the stars. I was going through stars at warp speed. It was like, whoa, and faster I went. It was terrifying but exciting all at the same time. After a while, I began to slow down. And ahead of me, I could see a glow, a brightness ahead. It emitted a feeling of warmth and welcome. This is interesting. I sensed being welcome to this beautiful place. It was so wondrous. I can't believe I'm here. What is it? The colors were magnificent. The sounds were melodious beyond words. Heaven felt bright and happy and safe. You have the next that one there? That's what it looked like as I was approaching it. Will you see people there? Loved ones who have passed? Yes, you will. It was reassuring. I want to reassure you, you will. As I got closer, I felt someone waiting for me. And I said to me, who is it? It was my grandfather, Jim Dool. I didn't expect it to be Grandpa Jim. I thought it was my brother maybe, or, something else. As I think about it though, I shouldn't have been surprised with Grandpa Jim. As a dual grandchild, I remember the many happy times we had over on the farm. On Sundays for holidays, we'd go over to my grandfather's farm in the hills of Argyle, New York, and we would run the fields, and we'd go down the snow on car hoods like toboggans. We had a wonderful time. And I remember Grandpa Dool being a friendly guy to me. And he was a grandpa. He had all these little cousins were running around. He had enough cousins to play with all the time. Well, one of his most prized possessions were his huge Belgian draft horses. You know how big a Belgian is? Major and Dan were two terrifically huge animals. Jim used to use these horses for lumbering and construction and mining up in upstate New York. They were his life. But one special thing about these beautiful giants with Grandpa Jim, he allowed me to walk them down the lane alone down to the pond. Now, these were his prized possessions, but he trusted me. I think they could have gone alone, but anyway, he trusted me to take the horses down for watering. No other grandchild was ever allowed to do that, I've been told later for years. I don't know why he liked me differently, but he did. After they moved into town, got a little house on Basin Street, I'd go up there and visit them, and he would bring out his Whitman sampler chocolates, and he'd give me chocolate, like the big, take one sample. And I loved parades, my mom and dad. So they would take me to parades, and he would buy me an ice cream cone. I thought, this is really a grandfather. That's a lot of fun, Well, later on, we always had these annual family reunions. The Dool family always did this, which was nice. I remember one year talking to my Aunt Ella and Nellie. They were closer to my age. He never bought me an ice cream cone, they both. He didn't. My specialness, obviously, to him came as a surprise to me, too. Is it reassuring though to know that loved ones will see there again? It was really nice. Could you hope to see in heaven? Think about that. You will. After a short time though, with Grandpa Jim, he took me through a courtyard. I thought this outside this beautiful walled place. And I don't see it as a gate, I see it as a gateway, an open arch. And going into a courtyard. He took me into another building. And I remember walking in there with him, and he brought me in, and then he walked away, and I walked up to this person starting at the desk. I thought, whoops. This person was an older man in white robes, obviously a serious person, and a person of authority. I was a little bit nervous. I think I was probably shaking and quaking. But then again, all of a sudden, I'm not afraid anymore. I felt calm. His calmness was a smile. Oh, he's not so bad after all. He's just kind of watching me a little bit. Remember him talking to me and saying, asking this question. You were given a second life, Sandra. What value have you done with your life? What differences have you made? I stood there and couldn't think of anything. I go, oh, nothing. I have done nothing. Nothing. If you'll let me go back, I promise I will do something of value with my life. And zoop, I was back. I was back in my body, in my bed, in the hospital. I was so surprised to have gone to heaven. Being a Christian, we know that the commandments, I know that God forgives sinners, but I never expected God to forgive me. Why would God forgive me? I was a sinner. I had sinned badly. 2 years earlier, I was to marry a man I loved very much. Carl and I would be married on Valentine's Day, 1977. It was Christmas Eve, 1976. And I was excited about telling Carl the good news. I was pregnant with our child, his first child. He had been married before, but his 2 children were adopted, and I had been married, and I had 3 children of my own. And I was so happy with this person, I thought. I looked forward to our life together, despite my parents disowning me because he was an older man. I truly cared about this person. I thought he cared about me. I thought he loved me. He was fun. He was charming. He made me feel alive. He made me feel beautiful. He made me feel desirable. Something I had never felt in my marriage for 13 years. Nothing. When Carl arrived at my home on Christmas Eve with gifts, I told him, I have a surprise for you. And he said to me, I have a surprise for you too. I said, okay. Here's a surprise for us, because I was expecting an engagement ring, right? But you would think maybe, right? That was when Carl told me that he didn't think he could handle having teenagers in his life again. And it was best that we no longer see each other, ever again. Needless to say, I was devastated beyond our comprehension. I held myself together that evening for my kids. They opened their gifts and he left. I was sick. I felt used. I felt dirty. I felt stupid. I felt ashamed. Every bad, negative word you could think of is what I felt about myself. Everything. What was I going to do? I was a single mom with 3 kids who I loved. What am I going to do with a baby and still take care of my kids? How can I hold my job and take care of this other little person? I felt alone. I felt lost and worthless and betrayed and beyond abandoned. That night was the lowest and most painful time of my life. I made a terrible mistake. In my agony, I decided to end my life. I wanted to die, and I meant to die. That's how bad I felt. And I took enough pills to do it. I was going to die. I loved my kids, but I hated myself so much. I couldn't stand living another minute. I didn't die. Mr. God didn't want me to, but that baby did. I miscarried that baby on Christmas Eve. I recovered in time and took care of my children, and I went on with my life, and I remarried, and I felt so guilty causing the death of an innocent child. It took me many years of searching and study and prayer to get me to begin to forgive myself. Important fact, my near-death experience came 2 years after the suicide. Many of us are told if you commit suicide, you don't go to heaven. I think I've heard that off and on in my life. Not necessarily true. After that near-death experience, I realized I could have stayed in heaven. I could have. Apparently, it was okay. Why haven't you done something? But I could have stayed. I never felt I had to go. That I was truly forgiven. Okay. I was asked what if I had to go with my life. I've been so graciously given it. I survived polio. So I began to study, open my heart to follow what God wanted me to do. I had no idea where it was going to go and what I was supposed to do. None. In my attempt to discover what my purpose was, I joined Bible study groups. Maxie Dunham's Dancing at My Funeral is the first book. Has anyone here read Maxie Dunham's? It's a little teeny book about this big, little teeny book. But it helped me learn to not be afraid and taking chances and to laugh and dance and sing for who I am. And I always loved that little book. I still have it. So I opened my mind and heart to possibilities. Now, when I'm with a person transitioning or dying, I always say these words: I will see you soon, and we will sing and dance together in heaven. I always say that. I read Death and Dying and Life After Life. I've read all the books that many of us have read, trying to, where am I supposed to go with this? That was followed by 3 retreats on various subjects, but one held on Easter weekend in 1980 impacted me the most. This one was a Sky Farm retreat in the Adirondack Mountains. It's beautiful, quiet up in the mountains, trees, nobody around, no distractions. This one was entitled, Who is God? Is he real? And what does he mean to you? I thought, that's good. I'm going to get in touch with that myself. Okay. I was joining 19 other members of my Methodist church, so I knew them, including my pastor, who was attending as an attendee, not as a leader. That was interesting too. Normally I drive. That's called control. But this time my friend Barbara Schmidt drove. We arrived at Sky Farm on a damp and cloudy Friday afternoon, Easter weekend. We socialized, enjoyed a pleasant dinner, and then we went to the educational session. After the presentation, we received tablets and a list of questions and instruction on what to focus on that evening. Now, this was a very different retreat. It was a silent retreat. Anyone gone to a silent retreat? Oh, they're very noisy because there's not a single sound. Nothing said between 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. There's no communication, even between husbands and wives. It's truly listening and getting into what you need to study. At first, it sounded okay to me. I'm pretty good about trying anything new. I have been on various retreats before, and it's a time to study, and I wanted to grow. The group broke up and dispersed throughout the lodge. Some of them opted on putting on rain gear and ventured outside into the rain. It was raining, a pretty good drizzle. I looked around and I found a nice, comfortable chair over there. I started to peruse the questions, and I became increasingly uncomfortable and anxious as I was reading the questions. I became overwhelmed. I wanted to go home. So much that I ran out of the lodge into the rain with no coat on. I ran. I'm a runner. I will run. I was overwhelmed with emotion, fear, confusion. I didn't know what to, I just wanted to go home. I want out of here. This is too weird for me. Let me out of here. I want to go home. And I started to run. I came upon a tall tree stump. I don't have a tree stump right here. And I remember running and stopping, and there's like a tree stump right about Fanny height. I kind of leaned back, and I remember, dear God, why am I here? Why am I here? I looked up and I was completely surrounded in light. I wasn't getting rained on. I wasn't getting wet at all. I could see my friends in the periphery, in the trees, in their reindeer getting wet. And I stood there and I felt as though I had been wrapped in a big fluffy blanket. And I thought, this is really different. And I remember just kind of enjoying the feeling. And all of a sudden, I heard these words. Sandra, this is exactly where you're supposed to be. This is the beginning. Do not be afraid. The voice stopped. The light remained. I got myself together and I walked back into the lodge and I didn't get wet. And the light dissipated. It was a silent retreat, so I went in to the shower, crawled into my bed and went to sleep. A lot of good night's rest I had that night. Well, the next morning at breakfast, can you imagine? The silence was lifted and I was bombarded with questions, right? What happened to you? Do you remember what happened? Maybe I dreamed it. I wasn't quite sure because it was so phenomenal. I wasn't sure it was real. I said to them, what did you see? They responded saying they had seen me in the trees and they saw the light surrounding me. And although it was raining hard, I was not getting rained on. After the questions and observations, our Reverend Burgess asked me to speak to our congregation on Easter morning about what happened on that miraculous day. This was indeed the beginning of finding direction and validation of my quest to do something of value. I still didn't know what it was. So starting a new life, I was searching to find my purpose. Again, more study groups, more books, I knew I'd done the right track. This is happening. I have to do something concrete. I can't just wait. So I went and I got psychological counseling to deal with the grief of losing the baby, the loss of my self-esteem, and the anger of that person. I remember one particular group session vividly. We're asked to think of ourselves as inanimate objects. Have you ever been in a session where they say, think of an inanimate object or an animal? So there's like 10 of us in this group. So I'm sitting there and they're all talking. Well, let's see, one was a tiger, one was a cat, another one was something else. And I go, oh, I must really be nuts. I must be crazy because I didn't think anything like that. I don't see myself as a leopard or a tiger. I'm not aggressive. Just don't mess with me. Then it came to me clearly. I remember distinctly what I said to Dr. Bryans that night. I am a Tiffany lamb. I am beautiful. I am valuable, and I am fractured into 1,000 little pieces of brightly colored glass. I am broken, but I can be recreated and made whole and new again. I'll never be quite the same, but I will again be beautiful and shine with light. Yes, I had made a big step that day towards recovery and becoming who I am today. I began trying to make a positive difference in the lives of people. But the greatest challenge for me is to be still and listen. Remember, I'm a talker. I'm an A personality type besides, so it's very hard for us to sit still and listen. But once I gave it up to God, remember who was in charge, things began to develop. That was the beginning of my quest to truly find the purpose. Now, what is the purpose? Okay, she's still talking around it, but she hasn't said what it is yet, right? You ask and wonder, so did I? It was a struggle. It was not easy. It took many years of study and listening and prayer and faith to discover my purpose. First, I spoke to small groups like this about life after life. Then I spoke to larger groups, and I shared with them I'd like to go to heaven, like I did here today. I went on to join High Peak Hospice in upstate New York. And I was given the most amazing assignment. I was given a Hollywood actor and a Broadway singer. He was the most charming gentleman. I didn't recognize him because he was elderly. And he and I would sing for the other patients together. He was so dear and sweet. But helping him and being his advocate, because I was going there to help him, to do anything for him, to take care of him, I learned it's not the talking to groups, it's the one-on-one that I can do for someone one-on-one. So I'm listening, I'm trying to be quiet. So what is my purpose? You can call me, I'm a life after life coaching guide. Kind of sounds impressive, doesn't it? I'm a coaching guide, whatever. I help people pass peacefully. And I feel confident that there is life after life. There is no question I'm going back to heaven. I'm going to stay, I hope, this time. For the past few years, beginning around 2007, I've been given responsibility of, and the honor, it's an honor to help these people. It's a very private, personal thing to pass from this life to the next. I hold them, I tell them what to expect, and I keep them calm. I send them off with love. I'd like to tell you about one special lady. Caroline Kiefer. My husband Bob and I went with my brother Doug and our sister-in-law Diane as they waited for their mother Caroline to pass. We've been with Caroline throughout this aging process, and her husband had died 4 years later, and I was with him when he passed. And it was time, we knew it was time. And she was such a beautiful, prim lady. And I walked in, it was obvious her life was ending, the hospice nurse, all the symptoms were there, it was almost over. But she was struggling for some reason. She appeared to be waiting for me to get there. She relaxed when I walked in the room. I thought, okay, that's good. But something's still wrong. So I went up to her and I touched her, and I sensed that something was wrong. I understand that NDEs sometimes are more attuned to feelings when we come back, and apparently I have that. I think something was wrong. She appeared unconscious, but she was still disturbed. I thought, it's a guy, it's a girl thing. She's a lady, she doesn't want the men in here. So I asked Bob and Doug to leave, and she immediately relaxed. Okay, good, okay. And as they left, she began to relax even more. So I told Diane she needed to let her mother go, because Diane was on the other side of the bed, and I was facing Caroline. But she was still struggling to stay with us. So I wrapped my arms around Caroline, and I touched Diane's shoulders, trying to form a circle. And as I lay next to Caroline, cradling her in my arms, she was right here, I said, Diane, you need to let her go. She needs to hear your voice. She needs to hear you say it. She won't go until you tell her it's okay. I can't, said Diane. I'm sure I did that. I can see her struggling. Okay. So, okay, Caroline. I got a little bit closer to her. I put her right up here. You know who I am. I'm Sandy, Doug's sister. You know I love Diane very much, and Diane loves you so much she can't tell you to go. It's okay to go. Charles has waited 4 years for you to go. It's okay. I'll take care of Diane. Doug and I love Diane. It's okay to go. I could then see a major change in Caroline's whole relaxation, her whole body, her breathing calmed. Then as death approached, she began to huff and puff and become agitated. Usually we only die once, and sometimes dying is a scary thing, and for her it was. It was at that time that I told Caroline what to expect about the aperture, traveling through space, getting to heaven, and that Charles would no doubt be there waiting for her as she approached. I told her I will see her in heaven, and she and Diane and I will sing and dance together. Caroline calmed down. She became very peaceful, and then she opened her eyes, and she looked directly into mine, and she gave me the most beautiful smile. 2 more breaths, 2 more smiles, and she was gone. One more. It's hard with best friends, but we sometimes have to be best friends too. Barbara Holden was a very special friend. She was a doozy of a person. We were friends from the first moment we met at the Riverside Presbyterian Church. We were the moderator and vice moderator, and we were in charge of weddings and funerals and anything that's a party, we could do it. And the garden club. She knew my story, and she knew that I was moving to Sebastian, and she was worried because that was up at Cocoa. I assured her I'd always be there for her, just call me. I'll be with you. I'll be with you. You see, I've been with her when she had her first heart attack, her second heart attack, her accident, when she had her pacemaker installed, and all the other medical appointments. So I knew Barbara, and I called her Sparky. I've seen Barbara in February to celebrate her birthday, as we had in the past 5 years. She likes to go to the Red Lobster. That girl could do like a truck driver. I've never seen a woman put down lobster like Barbara could do it, but she did. But, oh my goodness, this woman that was in the booth was just shrunken, frail. Oh my goodness, my Barbara was just so sick. But we had a 3-hour lunch and many happy remembrances. Then she asked for reassurances that I would be with her when her time came. I said, yes, just tell me, Barbara, I love you. I'll be there for you. Well, on April 5th, 2018, I was told that Barbara was hospitalized with pneumonia. I was sick with the flu. I didn't dare go near her for fear of making her sicker, right? On April 9th, I was told that Barbara was much worse and that her life support was being taken off on April 10th. I go, oops. I should no longer be contagious, but I made a promise to this woman. So I drove up. About 9 o'clock in the morning, I walked into her room expecting to see her all hooked up, family all around her. I walk in and she goes, oh. No husband. Where's the husband? Where's Parker? Where's the daughter? Where's the granddaughter? Where's the shoes? Nothing. Barbara's laying there all alone. Okay. So I go over and I talk to her. We started to talk about some of I touched her face and I just put loves on her so that she knew I was there and giving her loves. And she's so beautiful, sweet lady. And I spoke to her about, we went to plays, we went to all kinds of different, if Parker didn't want to go, I was 25 minutes away, she picked me up, she had the money to go to this plays I couldn't afford to go to. I got to go see the Irish dancers and all those wonderful things, Celtic women. So we talked about those things, and then I asked her if she was ready to go. And with a beautiful smile, she said, yes, Sam, please help me. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of living. I said, okay. I spoke with her some more about heaven. I reminded her what to expect. I guided her to a happy place. I taught Barbara how to find her happy place. We need to have a happy place, even as we're living. A place we can go and be afraid of nothing. For me, it's the beach and the sound of waves. It's a meadow. Whatever gives you happiness and peace, that's your happy place. I watched her relax as she listened to my voice. I watched her pulse slow to almost nothing. And I thought she was going to pass right there in my arms. I thought, what a wonderful gift that was. Well, granddaughters came charging in. Where are the machines? She was yelling at the nurses. She was yelling at me. The granddaughters were going berserk. I go, whoop. Barbara said, no. And her voice is very sore from having the thing in her throat. No, no machines. Well, they obviously wanted me to leave. And we talk about chaos. Poor woman's trying to die in peace, right? Well, I went over to my friend Barbara and I gave her a great big hug and a kiss. I whispered in her ear, dear sister, when you're ready to go, you go. On your time, when you're ready, you can go. I love you, Sparky, and we will be together in heaven soon. We will laugh, play, sing, and we'll dance together. Friends always, I was told Barbara, she stared into my eyes with love and she smiled. And I walked away. I was told that Barbara did go on wrong about an hour after I left. I truly believe that I found the answer to my quest and I'm at peace. I know without any doubt that I will spend eternity in heaven. The Lord has truly blessed me and I'm grateful for his grace and love. The greatest gift is the beauty of giving. When I am given the privilege of providing comfort and peace to a person beginning their journey to the next life, I treasure that and I do not take it for granted. It's a very special gift. We are given the gift of life. Death is not the end of life, it's the beginning. Don't waste it. You're not defined by your past. Instead, you are born anew each moment, every day. Own it. Make every day count. Follow your heart. Appreciate every moment. I hope you never ask, what if? What if I had done this? What if I had gone there? What if I had said that to my mother before she died? What if I had done this? I hope you never say what if. Be assured that there is life after life and heaven is true and real. Our loved ones are there to welcome us. Know that we go to a beautiful, loving place when we leave this earth. My hope for each of you is I've helped you feel peace as well, knowing that. Does heaven look different to you now? A little bit, maybe? My sincerest wish is that each of you go away from here feeling assured and relaxed that there is life after life. Yes, there for all of us who believe and trust in God, no matter what we've done in our lives. Please take a heart. It's a gift from me to you. Keep it where you see it often. Don't put it away in your pocket. Put it away, hang it on the refrigerator. Sometimes you're going to see it. Remind you of today. Remind you to keep your heart open and follow your heart. What you felt about yourself today here, hearing these words, and the love you give each other. Thank you for your interest in your courtesy, and may God bless each of you.
Thank you very much. Yes, we know that Barbara was very blessed to have you in her.
She was a doozy.
You had a wonderful life. You've had just a wonderful life.
So
you have learned so many lessons, right?
I don't get it right the first time. You keep trying. He doesn't give up on me, you know. He has faith in me.
And then you taught us so much about living today, not waiting till tomorrow.
Right. I don't know if I have tomorrow. I have died more than twice. God knows that things happen to me very quickly, very unexpectedly. And
well, you recently suffered a stroke.
Yeah, I've had 3 strokes. It's a horrible fall. It should have killed me. But apparently, I'm not done yet. But I should have done that. And others, choked to death on a piece of donut and different things. And you look at my life, and I've been through all kinds of tragedies, but I've overcome the tragedies. I love my kids, and I tried to have a good life, and I tried to, as a single mom, take care of my kids, and unfortunately found out in this time in my life. But I don't know if I'll be here an hour from now. I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow. It doesn't matter. They worry about him, but it doesn't matter because I know that I'm going to heaven. And I think part of my job is taking care of Bob, actually. Maybe. You think so, Bob?
I need a lot of.
That's the love of my life, Bob.
Well, your story is exactly the purpose of these meetings, is to give hope. That's why we wanted these meetings to be local, so that we can meet someone like you and learn from you and realize that our lives are important and purposeful right now.
I'm not an author. I'm not a I do write, but I'm not a published author. People have asked me to write about my story, and I said, there's so many of them out there. I'm just another one, but that's not my purpose. My purpose, I know that people are brought to me. Now, how did these 7 people come to me? The Lord brings them to me one way or another. I don't go looking for them. They find me or whatever through my church or whatever. Some of the wonderful people that I've been given this opportunity. Or someone said, I heard Sandy talk, and he talks to his brother at his brother's wife's funeral. Sandy says there's heaven, and this is what Sandy said. And here this older gentleman is talking to his brother, who's elderly too, giving him assurances. I told him that there's heaven and that he'll see his wife someday. Now that is incredible for an 80-year-old man. He said, I didn't realize that Dad heard what you said. He remembered every word, and he had dementia. He remembered every word he said. So you never know. So who's my next one? I don't know. But when he comes, my arms are open. Do you have any specific questions on where they have? Yeah.
How old were you when you were in the Iron Lung?
I was 7 years old. I was 7 years old when I was in the Iron Lung.
Were there other polio victims in the counties around you? Or?
No, they were all right in our town, one county, 7 of us. There were 10 children that week alone in Glens Falls Hospital. Now, they may have come from other counties close by, but in that hospital, starting that Monday morning, there were 10 of us. And Saturday afternoon, there was 1 of us.
Because I was raising on my daughter, so that's pretty close.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's
I remember my friends had polio. So do you have grandchildren?
I have grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
What do you tell them about that? Because I'm struggling with that, but I should talk to my grandchildren.
I don't tell them a lot about it. I think Katrina is my daughter, they know it. They've heard it. quite a bit, haven't you, Katrina? And they know it, and I think they're comfortable with it, and I think the kids, the grandkids all know that, you know, grandma went to heaven, and they might have heard me talk or whatever. The great grandkids are too little.
I
The
think
great grandkids are too little right now.
for my kids, that the book Heaven is for Real, it's a great book to share because there's a child's version that is a great way to share where they understand. It's not to say dumb it down, but it's done such a way that a child can understand the experience.
I think with death in our family, because Katrina's children were young when my mom passed, but I said to her, it's up to you if you want the children to come to the funeral, it's an open casket. And I was so proud of the kids because they weren't afraid of her. I mean, sometimes children are afraid of dead people, and they didn't hurt your mother, they're not going to hurt you in there. And Katrina was singing, and they were preparing my mother's house. Oh, I swear my mother's smiling because Katrina was singing. They were getting her ready to, you know, to be rude. And the children came up, and there was red and white flowers on my mother's casket, right? And the grandchildren said, well, Grandma needs flowers. And the children, I think Jenny started it, and they all pulled out white flowers, and they would crawl in and kind of put it right in with her, and they weren't afraid to crawl right in there with her and make Grandma have some, they made her a bouquet. And then the hardest part for me was when Katrina's twin brother, who was a soldier, came up, and on the periphery, I saw him walk up to her and salute her. And that was such an honor. Oh, but he pulled out the one red rose, and he put a red rose in her bouquet. She always was proud of her A-Ra, she called him A-Ra. She could peel a Portland apple in one long spiral. But Grandma always taught the kids to excel in school. She bribed them with money for good grades. And first thing she wanted to see was those report cards. But as far as death, I don't think they hadn't had a lot of experience with death, but it was never a bad thing. The worst thing about death is my 17-year-old brother was killed in a train accident. You don't expect to lose a young one. And again, that became a very positive thing because all the high school children lined up outside the whole little village. And they all lined up and they honored my mother and father. And they would come back even after they went to college and would stop in and see my mother and visit her because they loved going. But I don't think that's ever been a scary thing. It's always been, it happens, and you go to heaven. I think it's more of a matter of fact thing than anything. Yes.
Well, thank you for your absolutely moving story. Oh my Lord, that was amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
When you were in heaven, what did the space and time feel like? Like, did it feel like here, or did it have like
There was no space and time.
expansion?
It was just big.
You had a study? I mean,
Well, it was a glow, And when we arrived, it was very much of a glow, very bright colors, very, very bright colors. But it smelled, I remember smelling beautiful. I remember hearing music. And then this place was huge that I was at. And going into this courtyard, again, that was another big space. But then that room was a smaller room when I met that person. So I wasn't there very long.
how long do you think it
I have no idea.
Like, is it the hours or minutes? Or eternally, like you were there eternally, and that was it?
I don't think it was very long.
Yeah.
Well, they were in the hospital working on me for probably, I would say probably an hour.
But what she's saying is like when your perspective while you were in heaven, did it seem like you were there just a blip, or were you actually felt like you were there for a while, be able to enjoy the presence?
Oh, I was there. I was very much there. I mean, I felt like I looked like me. I felt like me. I felt like I had a body. I was just a little bit afraid of that person. And I remember, you know, it was like, you don't go to heaven very often. And I was a little bit kind of, I was fine with my grandpa. Come with me, please. Don't leave me here with this man. Except my grandfather was still here, though. I didn't feel like I was abandoned by my grandfather, but he brought me into this room with this person. And when they asked the question, I started to think, what have I done with that? I mean, I raised my kids as best I could, but that's not what he meant. What of value have I done with my life? You gave me a life, but I've not done anything of special value.
Do you feel like your self-esteem was restored at that moment?
Excuse me?
Do you feel like your self-esteem was restored at that moment, or at least the,
Oh, absolutely. Because I knew that I shouldn't be in heaven. I had committed a sin. I knew that. I felt very powerful. I felt very alive. I felt very blessed and charged to do something. When I said, I will make a difference. I will make a difference. I will do it. I will do it. Didn't know what I was going to do, but for some reason I did want to go back because I realized the value that I was given. I could have stayed. It's not really on that one body, that one child who lived. And after I ran into seeing my doctor, I was in the library one day, and this man kept staring at my neck. Okay. It turned out to be Dr. Friedman. He said, "Are you Sandra?" Yes, I'm Dr. Friedman. Well, I was an adult. I get back to my job. I had a meeting to go to. I said, "Do people ever thank you for what you do for them?" He said, "Not usually." I said, "May I have your address quickly, please?" And I was in the process of writing my father's biography, and in it is each of my children and all of the children. But I wanted Dr. Friedman to see, had he not lived me, Katrina would not be here, Eric would not be here, Bobby would not be here, our grandchildren would not be here. And I want him to know that by saving this one little girl, I tried to do this with my life, and I hope he's proud of me for it. And he wrote back, and I'm trying to say, it was written in Jewish. It's faded, the ink is faded, we kept it playing for so long. You saved one life, you saved the world. And he said, "I'm so proud of you." That's why he said he always called me his girl. I was in senior housing. I was the director of an upstate New York, and he was at one of the beautiful communities. So I walked in as a social event. Here's my girl, this is my girl. And Dr. Friedman went to heaven a few years ago. I'll see him someday up there. But I feel so honored to have been given not only that, but the light. I've never heard of anyone else who's been wrapped in the light, and I did not dream it. That to me was, I know I'm here for something, and I think I'm doing it. I hope I'm doing it. Any other questions? No? You all feeling better about life and gonna live every minute? Yes, young lady.
I think I shared the story with you, Sandy, about many years ago. My brother was 42. There was 3 girls, and my mother had a boy when I was 12. And he was 42 when he died accidentally. And my mother had a very, very hard time getting over it. I think he was avoiding the life for years. He didn't feel like he was really a life of the life that he was avoiding. But anyway, years to come, later, my mother had a serious heart attack, and then she had open heart surgery in Boston. And the only one she told was me, was when they took her off the machine, and they took the heart back, and you are dying at that time. And she went to heaven. She saw my brother. He was sitting on a fence. Flowers everywhere. She said the colors were absolutely beautiful. Colors. Yes. And he looked at her and he said, "Ma, Ma, I'm fine. I'm all right." Okay. And then she came down. Yep. It was a wonderful story. And I think that's big for her.
I think it isn't it reassuring to know that, and it's not like they're up there working or they're not just, they're relaxed and they're happy and they're living a life and they're enjoying all the colors and all those different things about it. Any other questions? You all done?
I think these things happen more often, even you being covered in the light, but we dismiss them. It has not happened to me, so I can't, but I think the more that we talk about it openly and we share these stories, and I do think your book would be wonderful to write. It may help one person. One person may pick that book up and read your story. But all these books and all these people that are now talking and telling what has happened makes it more acceptable. We're not
afraid to talk.
yeah, we're not afraid. We're
Afraid.
not
You're crazy, you're crazy.
Right.
Went to heaven, you're crazy, no.
right.
Not so much anymore.
Right. Well, and the internet, for all its bad, it is good in that
There's a
it
lot
is,
of us out there.
it has certainly opened up the channel for all of us to share.
Reverend Burgess, I want to tell you about Clayton. I put him on a pedestal. I shouldn't have, like he was a human, but he was my pastor and I thought he was God. And he was a participant in this, and he came up to me, I think sometime later, and he said, "I'm so jealous of you." I go, "Jealous of me?" He said, "Sandy, I have gone to every college, doctorate, everything he can do, and he's never had one little twinge of proof or evidence." And he said, "I saw it. I saw it with you. I see it in you. I see what's happened to you. And I've never had a touch of it." What do you say? I don't have anything to say. But that I really like him as a pastor, that some people, why am I lucky like this? Lucky, is that lucky? I don't know why, other than I'm obviously here for a reason.
I've often felt that way too, but I think that was the reason behind the Bible story of the angels going to the shepherds first before they went to the wise men, because sometimes the intellect gets in the way and makes you so left brain dependent that you can't stretch that thought.
That's true. That's a good point. Did everyone hear what Martha said?
Repeat it for us.
You want to say it a little bit louder?
That in the Bible, when the angels in the birth story, when the angels went to the shepherds first, it was because they were simple people and they didn't have a good education, and they had an open mind to accept. Sometimes I think the more educated we are, the more intellect we hang on to, the less our brains want to stretch out of that left side.
I think who Jesus talks to in the Bible, you know, because the common person, the everyday person, you know. But I think what my story, and I hope my story is I don't have a doctorate, I'm not published. I'm just an everyday girl who's had this wonderful thing happen to her, and that I'm not afraid to share it anymore. I used to be afraid. I'll tell you, the story ended until 2 years ago. The story ended before the suicide. It was just, I went to heaven. I think that you needed to know that I did do that, and that assures you that you go to heaven. But I was too afraid to be honest about that with myself or with the public. And now I think it is important for you to know that anybody can go to heaven. You make a mistake, and I made a big one, you can go to heaven. Before I was too afraid to say it in public. Not afraid anymore.
Did your family see a difference in you?
Do we, Katrina? Do you?
Before and after? Yeah.
Back then, I was pretty young.
She's very young then.
So probably not at the time,
She was very young.
because I was still in elementary school.
Yeah, very young.
Well, the one thing that I've come to realize by facilitating these meetings and doing all the reading that I read and listening to all of what I've listened to is that I look at transitioning now very different in that I don't believe that anyone dies, if we want to use that word, unless God is ready for that. So even as hard as it was to tell the story about the abortion, I've come to realize something.
A miscarriage. It wasn't
A miscarriage.
Mhm.
Miscarriage or abortions. Let's just Not
Same
that they're the
idea.
same, but
Same idea.
But let me just say this, I do believe that, from what I'm reading and what I'm understanding, is that God is controlling that. So if that baby, that energy goes back to heaven, that's what God wanted, or the source, or oneness, however you want to say it. So, and then maybe that energy comes back in a different way, and becomes another person. And that's what I'm starting to realize more and more, that we are incarnate, and we may incarnate many, many times. Not everyone, and I always say this, and I want this to always be clear, this is an open discussion, and we're reading and we're learning, and not anything I say is gospel, so to speak. You have to have, what I say always, an open mind and an open heart. Take from here what resonates in your heart, and use your mind then to learn what you need to learn, because this isn't a religious organization. This isn't dogma. This is just people sharing what they've experienced. And I think many, many times, it goes along with what we do learn in church. So, and what the Bible says. So I kind of see it going, you're reiterating what is actually said in the Bible. Today we learned that in church, that a light came down, and it was God speaking and surrounded these three people. And then Jesus said, don't go back and share that. Now, he may have had a reason. No, he didn't want to get everyone excited or upset or not believing. We don't know that. I don't know that. But anyway, I don't think you're just anyone. I think none of us are just anyone. We're precious to God and to.
And each one of us is an individualized expression of God.
Yes, we are an individualized expression of God. That's right, each one of us. So we have that within us, that light within us. So. All right, anyone else?
Please do. Don't put it in your pocket and forget it.
Or your purse.
Or your purse.
Anyone else? We have about 10 more minutes if anyone else wants to share.
We now came in late now, so Dr. Freeman was the one that.
Be sure and come back March 25th for Serena's talk. I think it will be really. Well, if you want to visit or look at the books, we're finishing a little bit earlier than we normally do. Normally, we're racing out of here to get out of the library a little bit earlier. But if you want to visit or look at some of the books, take with you, please do that. Or just
Thank you.
go if you want. Yes, Doug. On the website, there are so many. Oh, those, yes. Yes, I definitely will. Yes, I definitely will. That's a good idea. Yeah. I guess. Thank you for joining us.